Some geopolitical shifts unfold quietly, yet they often reshape the strategic landscape for decades. One such development has received remarkably little attention. The United States has renamed its Indo-Pacific Command back to the Pacific Command. While the command's area of responsibility remains unchanged, the symbolism is difficult to ignore. During President Trump's earlier tenure, the command was renamed Indo-Pacific to signal that Washington viewed the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific as one integrated strategic theater. Restoring the old name subtly suggests that Indian Ocean may no longer occupy the same place in America's global priorities. The move fits into a broader pattern of the United States gradually reducing its overseas commitments and encouraging allies to shoulder greater responsibility for their own security. For Indo-Pacific nations, the message is clear. They can no longer depend entirely on the United States to counter China's growing military and economic power. But instead of creating a strategic vacuum, America's reduced involvement appears to be producing the opposite effect. Across the Indo-Pacific, India, Japan, Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, the Philippines, and South Korea are steadily building an expanding wave of economic, diplomatic, and defense partnerships. Individually, these appear to be bilateral agreements. Collectively, they resemble the emergence of a new regional security architecture, a coordinated effort to preserve the balance of power against China's growing assertiveness. The timing is hardly accidental. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Indonesia, Australia, and New Zealand followed closely on the heels of the Japanese Prime Minister's visit to India. These diplomatic engagements point to an accelerating effort among the regional powers to deepen strategic coordination at precisely the moment Washington appears to be stepping back. The military dimension is even more revealing. Japan is rebuilding the intelligence capabilities on a scale unseen since the Second World War. Australia continues to strengthen its armed forces under the AUKUS framework. The Philippines has adopted the porcupine strategy, investing in powerful shore-based anti-ship weapons to make the Chinese naval aggression prohibitively costly. At the center of that strategy are India's BrahMos supersonic missiles, widely regarded among the world's most capable anti-ship missile systems. Indonesia and Vietnam are also exploring acquisitions of the same missile, while India, Japan, and Australia are rapidly expanding military exercises, intelligence sharing, and defense cooperation. The result is the gradual emergence of a strategic arc stretching from the eastern Indian Ocean to the western Pacific. Alongside growing economic integration, these countries are quietly building a powerful regional deterrent against Chinese expansion. This evolution also changes the role of the Quad. For years, the Quad, comprising the United States, India, Japan, and Australia, was seen as the principal framework for balancing China. But if Washington intends to reduce its strategic footprint, the center of gravity inevitably shifts towards the Asian members themselves. Rather than relying primarily on American-led grouping, the region is increasingly developing a broader network of bilateral and trilateral partnerships. In effect, the Indo-Pacific is beginning to build its own security architecture from within. Perhaps the most important element of this new geopolitical equation lies not on land, but at sea. Nearly 60% of China's maritime trade and a substantial share of its energy imports pass through the Strait of Malacca. The narrow waterway connecting the Indian Ocean with the South China Sea is one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. Any prolonged disruption here would have profound consequences for the Chinese economy. This explains why China's strategic planners closely monitor India's growing defense partnerships with Indonesia, Vietnam, Singapore, Australia, and Philippines. Together, these countries occupy positions along or near the China's principal sea lines of communication. None seeks confrontation, and no one is proposing a blockade in peacetime. However, in the event of a major conflict, their combined naval capabilities, surveillance networks, and long-range anti-ship missiles could create enormous pressure on China's maritime lifeline. The Strait of Malacca, like the Strait of Hormuz, can become a strategic bottleneck for China. Even the possibility of such coordinated action acts as a powerful deterrent, forcing Beijing to consider the enormous economic and military risks of any large-scale conflict in the Indo-Pacific. Ironically, America's reduced military involvement may have accelerated this transformation. Rather than leaving behind a strategic vacuum, it has encouraged the major Indo-Pacific powers to become stakeholders in their own collective security. What is emerging is neither a formal military alliance nor an Asian version of the NATO. Instead, it is a flexible network of like-minded states linked by shared economic interests, defense cooperation, and a common desire to prevent any single power from dominating the Indo-Pacific. Some analysts may describe the emerging network as an arc of deterrence, stretching from Japan and South Korea through the Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore, and Indonesia to Australia and India. Almost a virtual ring of fire around China's maritime periphery. The geopolitical center of gravity in the Indo-Pacific is therefore undergoing a profound transformation. The era of overwhelming American primacy is gradually giving way to a regional balance of power led increasingly by Asian nations themselves. And that may well prove to be one of the most consequential geopolitical shifts of the 21st century.